Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best knives and gear. There's a whole bunch of different categories, including some of my own personal recommendations. There's something down here for everybody, so make sure you take a look. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review slash knife overview to do with you guys. One that we have kind of already done. This is just a different version of it. This is the Protech Strider collaboration SNG operator series, and what that means is it's completely blacked out and has a tritium insert on the firing button. This is a super cool variant of this knife that was recently offered up in a limited. You know, Protech does like everything in short sprints, so they continuously offer the same model but in different variants. I actually have another variant of this knife right off to the side. So this is a very interesting variant, and it's one that I wanted to talk about. It was sent to me by a patron who goes by David S. I really appreciate that, man. David has been a wonderful patron and very kind and generous. So thank you so much for lending this knife to me and letting me take a look. Speaking of Patreon, if you'd like to support my channel, and at the same time get your hands on some cool stickers and gain access to the once-a-week video that I do just for patrons, you can follow the link down in the description to my Patreon. Have a look around, and then if you'd like to support me, it would mean the world to me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement on this guy. If you watched my other SNG review of the Protech variant, then this will all be very familiar. 8¼ inches overall. Blade length coming in at 3.5. Cutting edge, given that very generous forward choil, is actually about 2.8 inches. Let's do some size comparisons. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall. So you can see there it's definitely a big knife. Not quite as long as the Rat 1. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. Very similar. How about up against the Spyderco Para 3? Spyderco Para 3 coming in at 7¼ inches overall. We're going to do a couple more size comparisons. How about up against the actual Strider SNG? There you go. You can see the lines are literally in exactly the same place. How about up against the little guy, the PT, because I've got it right here. There you go. Another size comparison that I wanted to do was the Spyderco Shaman, because the lines are in very similar place. A lot of people call the Spyderco Shaman the Striderco. So you can see they're very similar in overall length, blade length, things like that. Pretty cool. The other variant that I've got of this knife is actually a gift sent by my buddy Jeff. Excellent and very generous person. Sent me the titanium version of this knife. So you can see there what I mean when I say that there are different variants of this knife released all the time. When you check right now, a lot of you will be, unhappy to see that these are, for the most part, sold out. But if you want a Strider Protech or a Protech of any variant, just know that eventually newer, different versions come out. Recently, they did one that was two-tone green and satin with a black knurled handle, and they've done all black versions in the past. They've done satin and black. Now they did this tritium one. They do special versions like this titanium one. So if you're wanting to get your hands on these, Blade HQ has them every now and then. DLT Trading has them every now and then. Those are great places to look. These are really, really cool knives. And, rest assured that if you do get your hands on one, it'll be part of a limited run series. Usually, like on this one, it's probably numbered on the box. But like on the titanium one here, you can see on the inside it says number 2 of 40. They generally do, I think, runs of 50 or 100 or 25, something like that. So really, really cool. So how's the action on this guy? Well, as you can see there, this is an automatic knife. Something to point out, this knife is not going to be legal everywhere, right? Even if you do live in the United States, there are certain areas that simply restrict carry of automatic knives, meaning not assisted knives, knives that actually release the blade with the push of a button or a switch. And then in some areas, it's actually still legal to own it, which is beyond ridiculous, but that is the case. I live in Kansas, so I can own and carry this legally. It doesn't stop me here. So for that reason, I bring this to some of you to help make a purchase decision, and for other people, it's just going to be for entertainment. But keep in mind, automatic knives are not legal everywhere. The action is fantastic. It is very Protech-y, and what I mean by that is it's got a very powerful action. It's very snappy. Anybody who has never fired a Protech knife, and they're known for high-quality side-opening automatics. If I'm going for a side opener, Protech makes the best side opening automatics, period. I have never handled a side opener that feels quite like a Protech. I very much enjoy the action on this. It feels very crisp and very solid, very trustworthy, and I like it. I'm really, really happy with that action. Let's talk about carry profile. This is not a, well, let's go, I'll tell you what, let's weigh it first. I think we usually do that. I get out of order because I get carried away about the stuff I want to talk about. Let me reset this here real quick. We are looking at 6061 T6 aluminum scales in some pretty substantial thickness, and then a blade of 154 cm that's not so thick. I want to say it's probably about 120 thousandths. We'll go ahead and measure it here real quick. Give you guys an accurate look. Yeah, about 120 thousandths. Not super thick, but it is definitely a big knife. So the overall weight is coming in at about 4.87 ounces, which isn't that bad. My titanium variant is definitely heavier at 6.5 ounces. So the aluminum makes a big difference. A lot of people still ask, you know, is aluminum durable enough for some? 6061 T6 aluminum is very durable. If you want to see what it looks like after a long periods of use, this is the Protech Rockeye. You can see there after some oil, it's just fine. This used to be mine years ago, and then I still need to sharpen this for my friend. But then I sold it to a gentleman who works in the service department of the dealership I used to work at, and he carries and uses this thing every single day. You can see there where it's been dropped and nicked a couple of times. There's a good mark right there. Structurally, the aluminum has held up just fine. It's basically the hard coat anodizing on the outside that wears off a little bit, but that's going to be the case with knives that you use. So, yes, aluminum is plenty durable. Don't worry about it. Or I wouldn't anyway. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So, like I said, this guy is thick. And it's not, I mean, it's not super heavy, but it's definitely thick. So up against like the Spyderco Para 3, you can see there it is definitely a little bit thicker. It really looks thick back here, but that's because it's just a seam. It's not an open body construction, so it really makes the scales look thick. It's thick. It's not Medford thick, but it's definitely thick. In terms of carry height, you're looking at kind of the same situation that's going on with the Para 3 and PM2. It's just tall in certain areas, especially back here. This knife is very much butt heavy, which causes a little bit of awkwardness in terms of where the pocket clip sits. Excuse me. It's like I always say, if you carry other stuff in your knife pocket, right, then this is going to bother you. If you carry, if you're wearing thin pant material, athletic shorts, this is going to bother you. If you only carry a knife in your knife pocket and you're wearing jeans or other heavy-duty pant material, this is not going to bother you. It just depends. It's circumstantial. So there you go. Certainly not the worst carry profile in the world, but also certainly not the best. Let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy real quick here. We've already talked about this. You know, you guys know, anybody who's seen the other review, I like these knives. I think they're great. I think they're one of the most preferable automatic knives that are out there, and I'm a big fan of Strider's Ergonomics. So this is not going to be any different than the review I gave this guy. So I'm going to give you guys the short version. These are made incredibly well. They have very high, like attention to detail, making sure everything's put together correctly. It's what you'd expect from Protech. Emphasis on the ergonomics. These have fantastic ergonomics. Not everybody's going to agree with how much they sacrificed in terms of blade or cutting edge to get your, the handle space, but I like having options in terms of where I'm going to put my hands in this guy. And, you know, the shape of the Strider all makes sense. The shape of the handle, it all makes sense when you pick it up. You can kind of see where you're supposed to put your hands. And I've carried an EDC this guy. I haven't beat on it, but it's definitely been carried. It's got a couple of marks here and there, a couple little snail trails as proof, I guess. And I can tell you that the amount of blade that I need on a day-to-day basis, or the amount of cutting edge, this is even still a little bit overkill. So I'm happy to be able to choke up on it when I need to if I'm really going to bear down on it. Not that I necessarily need. The entire knife really is overkill for me, but I just like having the option to put my hand where I want to put my hand. The blade shape is also excellent. You don't start off with a super, let me show you guys this. So this one has the same blade stock thickness as this guy. So here's an actual Strider SNG. You can see it's much thicker. If we can get it to focus there. It's probably about 185 thousandths. This guy's only 20 thousandths. Now, the grind is a little bit different on the standard Strider. The grind's much lower here. So you get more strength in terms of a flat on these guys, right? But it doesn't have, you know, it doesn't start out as thick, so it doesn't need to drop as high to get down to a nice thin cutting edge. And it does. It gets down to a nice, reasonably thin cutting edge. It's certainly not going to be an absolute laser beam, but for your regular cutting tasks, breaking down cardboard boxes, cutting plastic ties, rope, rubber, stuff like that, stuff that it was designed to do, absolutely. On top of that, I would say that this is a more hard use oriented automatic knife. I love my titanium variant, but I gotta say on this guy, I actually prefer the aluminum for the weight reduction. It really, you know, takes a lot of the bulk out of the knife, and it's a pretty substantial amount of weight reduction, about 4.8 versus 6.5. That's enough to where I notice it. And normally you guys hear me say, I kind of prefer some solidity. On this knife, because of the position of the pocket clip and the fact that there's so much sticking out and how thick it is, it's kind of nice to have a little bit of weight reduction to balance out that bulkiness or the feel of the bulkiness. There is a separation, in my opinion, between how big something feels and how much it weighs, right? It kind of, in some ways, mass and weight can help someone like me. I kind of enjoy being reminded there's something in my pocket, but I don't like being reminded that there's something in my pocket just because it takes up so much space. So the aluminum variant kind of balances that out just a little bit. I really wish that they had put, a while back I reviewed the PT Auto, the little one, and they have a smaller deep carry pocket clip on it. I really wish that they would do that. It's cool that it has like the actual Strider clip. You can see there, these all have the actual Strider clips. That's cool. It keeps with tradition, but I just like the other clip better. I like the simple deep carry clip because then it sinks that whole butt into your pocket, right? And then it's much less of a problem. Now, that being said, I still want to point this out. Again, for people who are not carrying anything else but a knife in their pocket, it still carries just fine. It carries pretty shallow. There's about that much sticking out of the pocket. But it does, I mean, the pocket clip definitely does its job. It's not like I feel like it's going to go anywhere. There's just a lot sticking out. So that's kind of the issue there. Let me go ahead and do a hardware check for you guys. So normally I'd be like, oh, get out my handy-dandy Wea bit selector and Wea magnetic driver, two items that are very recommendable and diddly blah, 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 blah. That's what I always do. And yes, you can find those down there in my Amazon store, the one that I referenced at the very beginning of the video. Just pull it open and search for the category or the part of the shop that says knife maintenance. You can get your hands on these as well as a whole bunch of other stuff. But actually, this knife uses a hex head. So I'm not going to be doing the hardware check, but because I'd have to get out my other driver, and I'm not going to do that. But as you can see there, it's plenty large. Those are very common heads. Oh, wait. No, I'm wrong. These are still Torx. I took one glance at that because, no, on the other one, they're like that too. I've never bothered to adjust them. Sometimes I figure this stuff out right in the middle of the review. Okay, well, we'll go ahead and use this. Right? We'll go ahead and do my normal pitch. Here's T8. The pivot absolutely is a hex head. Right? So you are going to need a hex or Allen or whatever you want to call that to get in there. But your body screws are going to be, I'm guessing T8. Ooh, they're bigger than that. Ooh, I like that. I like it when they're just larger size. You know why? Because the teeth can get in there and I don't have to, the larger the bit, the less likely it is to strip out. Yeah, those handle screws are a T10. I love that. The only thing I would have liked better is if the pivot was T10, but that's okay. What I like to avoid is T6. I hate T6. I'll tell you this though, guys, I have never had to adjust mine, even after carrying it and using it. More so what I've done with it is fired it about 1 billion times. This guy is still centered. And this guy is, of course, centered because it's brand new. But yeah, this guy still feels the same. The spring fires just as hard. This one's got a little bit more counterbalance and weight because the titanium weighs more than the aluminum. But yeah, these things are solid. You know, a lot of times with an assisted knife or other automatic knives I've had in the past, not OTFs, they have come off center after firing them over and over and over again. I'm sure some people might experience that, but I didn't experience that. And even if it did, you just use an Allen head to adjust it. So that's really, really cool. I like that. I'll tell you what I love about this the most, the thing you guys are probably really wanting me to talk about, the fact that it's completely sterile and blacked out. Normally, I'm not all about that blackout look, but they really did a good job at this. There's literally nothing on the blade. It's just completely black. That's super cool. Hardware's black. Everything is black. The only thing that stands out is that tritium insert. If actually, I guess I could cut the lights, but I'd have to turn everything off. That tritium insert glows. Tritium is a quick Google search because I didn't know anything really about tritium other than it glows, and you see them in knives and firearms. It's a radioactive isotope of hydrogen. No, it's not dangerous unless you inhale it, apparently. So don't inhale it. You can't inhale this because it's actually set in, you know, underneath a surface on the button. But no, it's not dangerous. But it does glow, which is cool. And I did check. I turned all the lights off. And it is something that just barely allows, like if I were to drop this on the floor and I was lucky enough for it to land face up, then I'd be able to see it, right? If it lands this way, you're going to be crawling around looking for it with your hands, right? But it is cool that that little insert's on there. I like that. It gives it that overly tactical kind of feel, you know, and it's a Strider and it's a Protech. It really, you know, fans of automatic tactical knives, I mean, this is kind of like a dream come true. It's kind of like the best package all wrapped into one thing. And on top of that, the ergonomics are fantastic. You have a lot of options. You have a blade with a good blade steel, not the best for the price range, but a good blade steel. I still think, I mean, I say this all the time. This Protech is in CPM 154. This is in 154 CM. Can we just move all those 154 CMs to CPM 154 so I feel better about the money that I'd have to spend on this? It's not, 154 CM is fine. But let's just make it CPM 154. In my opinion, CPM 154 is just it's the same composition. It's a great composition. It's just better because it's powder formed, so you have even particle distribution across the board for the blade. But it's fine, right? You have a blade that will definitely cut. It'll definitely puncture. It's definitely strong enough, right? It carries okay. It's not the best. It's not the worst. A little bit thick, but should be fine for the type of people who are buying it. They probably know what to expect. This is a great knife. This particular version is a little bit pricey. They're out of stock now, so this isn't really going to do anybody any good. But on sites like Blade HQ and DLT, I'm seeing them for $265 to $280. The Protech Strider itself is a very recommendable knife, but the base form of it definitely does not get up that high. Getting up like between the $250 and $300 mark. This knife has a lot of serious competition. You have to be specifically wanting this knife, right? You have to be specifically wanting an automatic Strider that's blacked out with the tritium insert to pay that much. I'd recommend, you know, like this is awesome. I love this knife and I'm sure that David is very, very happy with it. And he probably was like, yeah, I want that. And I want this special version of it, this particular one with the tritium insert, and I'm happy to pay for it. And some people will be happy to pay for it. The basic version of this knife is very, very recommendable. But also, I'll throw this in. The one that I have is titanium and flamed and has a pearl inlay. And it's like, when it was brand new, when it was available, it was like $450. Now, I love it, and it was a gift, but I definitely can't recommend that version to a lot of people. You know, so even my version of the knife is not something I'd say is recommendable. However, they definitely are cool. I mean, cool factor on these guys is off the charts. And if, you know, if the one comes along that you really, really want and you can justify the price, then I'm sure you'll be happy with it. But the standard version of these knives, I want to say, comes in something around $225, which is a much easier price to deal with. And by standard, I mean periodically they do a plain black handle and a tumbled 154 cm blade. It's still a little bit high for what people, you know, like there are other knives out there that are just regular folding knives that are in 154 cm and aluminum and cost much less, right? But there's a little bit more that goes into an automatic. We could argue, you know, value all day, but that one I definitely can recommend because you're getting a really great package, a really well-designed package. You're getting Strider's ergonomics, you know, all that stuff wrapped into one for a reasonable price. But this is still really cool. Not going to put it on my most recommended list, but it's definitely cool, and it's definitely, you know, for people really, really looking for this type of thing or just a very specific variant. Yeah, these are neat. It's just unfortunately you're going to have to deal with secondary market prices now if you want to get your hands on this specific variant, unless there's somewhere out there that's still carrying a few of these. But anyways, guys, I think that's going to be pretty much it for today's video. David, thanks so much for sending this guy along. But yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.